Hey, this is a new podcast, and with me is Meisenhower, the TL writer that followed in my footsteps, kind of, or basically started doing it right after I was basically finished because I was getting paid a shit ton. That's kind of how it went. Anyway, I came to the realization that because I don't actually write as much StarCraft 2 as before, it's harder for me to get invested into like the data research of it just because I'm not creating any content around it. Like no, I don't do that many articles about it, or if I do, I just go back and research it, right? So I thought it'd be a good idea to have like a more of an regular sort of podcast to talk about these things, so I could keep more on the ball with when it comes to StarCraft 2. And so Meisenhower showed the most interest, as far as I can tell, of anybody to want to do one of these, right? And you're also one of those people like me who have a very unique, I guess would be the best way to put it, perspective upon the different players, the legacies of and the meta and all that about StarCraft 2 in general. So this will be the first episode, and I've decided to name it Proxy Racks, or is it Proxy Racks or Proxy 2 Gate? I went with Proxy 2 Gate in honor of CJ Hero, who lost approximately $200,000 in winnings, losing to Proxy 2 Gate. Truly a hero of his time. As that's just too funny to me. So, calling it the Proxy 2 Gate, and this time we'll be talking a bit about Blizzcon, a bit about the Super Tournament, and Meisenhower's most recent article about who are the best players in GSL history. Right? So, I guess you may as well start this chronologically. Did you watch the Africa GSL Super Tournament after Sue got knocked out?
I did watch some. I'm sure your time zone it started at like 1 a.m. I think it started at 4 a.m. for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I caught some of it. I'd say half the series,
Yeah.
but I did catch the majority of the first semifinal, the whole second semifinal, and the final.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I was
So
there when it mattered.
you were there when it mattered.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question I'll ask is, what you didn't watch Mario versus SOS, right?
I watched. I skimmed through a VOD,
Okay.
but I watched carefully enough that I could comment a little bit on it.
Okay. So what do you think about that particular matchup? Because I have like very different opinions about Mario than I guess most people right now. So
Well, I think the team kill dynamic wasn't really, it's much is made about the team kill dynamic. I don't really think that was in play too much in this series. But I think there's an element to how Maru this year is like, in a way, he's very structured. He's like doing these kind of like Protosses are just dying to his proxy builds, right?
mm-hmm.
And last couple months. And earlier in the year, he was showing this kind of like, early aggression. I know one time against SOS he did. It always stuck out to me that he just like, really fast stim builds. I think that was on Ascension Ire, that game. Really stuck out to me from a while ago. But very aggressive stuff. And SOS is just kind of like weird, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
strange player. And I think so he's kind of like, in a way, I don't think Maru would fear anybody at BlizzCon, but when you watch him play SOS in the Super Tournament, I think he should be wary of SOS. Because that match could go either way.
Yeah. Basically, here's my opinion. I guess is I think like Maru's been a bit overrated in terms of like his series prep, because I just think he's legitimately the best player, and like this meta really does favor him and his style, and the fact that he has evolved his game in a lot of different ways this year compared to the previous years. Even if like I think he's regressed a bit in terms of pure raw mechanics, I think his overall understanding of the game has increased significantly, at least for this expansion, at least for this patch, or patch it, or a series of patches, I guess would be a better way to put it. And so when I look at it that way, then I think to myself, what is it about Maru that makes him so dominant within this period? I think one of the reasons he's so great against Protoss, and it hasn't necessarily been disproven yet, is that he's always incredible if he's allowed to get tempo control, if he's allowed to be like if he's allowed to play the first move, if he's allowed to take control of the game from the beginning to the end, and he's always like one step ahead. And because I think of it that way, I think I've always thought like SOS would be a really bad matchup for him because SOS doesn't play to any standard known by the Protoss race in any iteration of this game. So I agree with you. Like the team dynamic didn't really come into play here, and I don't think even if Maru was like a great prep player, I don't think that would have come into play here. It's just like a very stylistic matchup because I don't think like preparing against a regular player or any other player and preparing against SOS are very different things. So I thought like SOS probably had like I think SOS among all the players in the world probably has the best stylistic matchup against Maru, and I think that's just how it played out here.
Well, I think there's an interesting thing, this proxy meta, how you talk about Maru not being great at, maybe not as great at preparation tournaments, as some people are saying. But I do think this proxy thing does show a strength of Maru's, where other people also do proxies. But Maru, like the most important thing with the proxy is how you follow up, because you're rarely killing your opponent with them. And you have to follow up. How you follow up, you can't really scout super well sometimes. You can always float your barracks and try to see what's going on depending on the matchup. But a lot of the time, it seems like it's a feel thing where your opponent can do X, Y, and Z. You have to respond appropriately with little information. And Maru always seems to respond correctly, which is why it feels like he wins a lot of games. Like he'll proxy, it won't do damage, and he still wins because he responds correctly. But I think if he gets into some weird, thing, best of 7 with SOS, BlizzCon finals, where he proxies 5 out of 7 games, I don't think you'd see him respond correctly 100% of the time, which he seems to do against everybody else.
Yeah, because I think everybody else is on a similar wavelength, and SOS is clearly on his own wavelength. And so if you're running on, and this is why I think he's more of an intuition-based player than he is like a series prep player, I guess would be a good way to put it. Of course, like I can't confirm it one way or the other. It's just my own gut instinct about everything I've seen from this guy since the beginning, right?
Well, I don't think he has much of a need to at least now.
Yeah, like he doesn't need to, right?
To prepare to the opponent, he just needs to do his plan, and if he executes his game plan, he'll just win.
Yeah, like I think that's a completely valid game plan. I actually think that's the best game plan to have if you're as good as he is.
Yeah.
Right.
He doesn't. Yeah, like that's that's a traditional thing in traditional sports where you just play your own game, right? Trying to play your opponent's game is put you at a natural disadvantage.
Yeah, like
the only thing with Maru.
Yeah, the only time you have to do the latter is if you're like an underdog, generally speaking. And Maru hasn't been an underdog for like over a year at this point. It feels like so. That's just how I feel. Like that's a matchup that can't come back to haunt him if he plays against SOS at BlizzCon. But we'll have to see, I guess. And then we'll go to the top 4. So SOS, Solar, Dark, Classic, both PVZs. What did you think of these matchups?
SOS. I mean, the funny thing about all 3 matches from here on is they're all reverse sweeps. SOS is the kind. It's funny because SOS, he all killed KT way back in the day. It's like, okay, he's the kind of guy that could reverse sweep someone. And then you say, oh, Dark is the kind of guy that could be reverse swept. But so Dark, SOS, Solar, Dark Classic, for various reasons, I seem reasonable enough. The final, though, I didn't see that. I did not see that happening. When it was 3-0, I was messaging someone. I'm like, oh, guess it's just over. I mean, because it seems there's no way SOS is giving up a lead like that.
Totally did, though. Totally did. And I'm not sure. I haven't studied. PvP is a very weird matchup because you have to actually study like all the different variations of the builds in order to understand what exactly the mind games were going into that. And I haven't studied that much of it. I don't think there's even that much like raw data if you're just looking at the like what I do, which is like the on stage performance games, because there isn't that many of those. In
yeah,
PvP.
These guys play like 20 offline games a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like SOS probably like 20, 30, and how many of them are against Protoss? So.
So, just based off of what I know, I'm gonna go ahead and guess like I think I do legitimately think like if we are talking about regular Protoss knowledge, Classic is smarter than SOS. Whereas like SOS is smarter in his own way of his own unique style. But you run that into like a best of seven in a I don't know if you want to call it coin toss, but it's like a mirror matchup, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel
Working
like
with the same tools here.
yeah, I feel like basically like the longer the series went, the more in favor it was going to go to Classic over time. I guess that's kind of
Yeah.
how I felt about that thing. So, like I will say, like the idea of like SOS as the clutchest player of all time kind of dies here, probably.
Well, I think it. I mean, if you look at SOS's history, this is like one of the like quiet storylines
Mm-hmm.
of StarCraft 2. Because everyone's just like everyone still views SOS like the $100,000 man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, dollar sign a dollar sign. But if you open up his Wikipedia page, you see that since winning the WCS Global Finals, he's 0-4 in finals.
Yeah.
You know, since 2016, he's 0-4 in finals. So he's long since you know he's not really that clutch anymore.
I don't actually know if he ever was, to be honest. Like, I feel like he hit very good burners on weekend tournaments, and in those weekend tournaments he was clutch in those.
Yeah.
Whereas like being clutch in a GSL is a bit different. I feel like just because like the entire day is leading up to that moment, whereas you've had like multiple days leading up to like the finals, and sometimes the semifinals are played on the same day. So
To be fair, the finals versus Innovation, he was pretty close.
yeah.
That was way closer for a match than it should have been, considering Innovation was like the best player 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Innovation should have really smashed him. One of those finals was Pyeongchang, where he got demolished by Scarlet. So
Yeah, that's probably more like just disparity between the two of them.
yeah, exactly. He just played really badly. So I think if you look, he's had his most code as success since winning the global finals in 2015. He's made the finals twice.
Yeah, but it's also like if you want to put it another way, it's also because that's all he needs to focus on at this point. There's no more team league. There's no more international tournaments he has to walk around through. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I agree. I think this is. But you think he's up 3-0, you think you would find a way to win the match.
yeah, you would think so, but unfortunately he wasn't MVP.
Yeah,
Couldn't pull off the last one, right?
I give a lot of credit to Classic. I mean, he was what? So he gets up 2-0 versus Creator,
Mm-hmm.
and loses 2, goes to game 5. You're like, holy shit, is he really gonna lose to Creator? And he manages to clutch out that series and reverse sweeps people twice to win his last 2 matches.
Yeah.
One of which, the one versus Dark, is like, you know, Dark in a nutshell, right? Gets ahead 2-0 in the semifinal and loses.
Yeah.
So props to Classic, who really played a great tournament.
Yeah.
I think Classic's been really good all year.
I think he's been good his entire career.
Yeah, of course, but like you talk about the small sample size. I mean, how many offline matches do these guys play a year?
Mm-hmm.
Where he does really well at the first couple of tournaments, but loses key matches, gets blown out by Dark, gets blown out by Rogue. I mean, Katowice, I think it's actually pronounced.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he gets blown out there, and then he loses early in GSL. And we're talking about a year where he plays like 30 some offline matches. It's a really small sample size. I think the whole time he's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time he's put it all together for a whole tournament.
Yeah. I think in general he's probably been the most underrated Korean player relative to his like accomplishments.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I wrote that article about Classic. You know, just no one seems to care about him, which is in a way positive that he doesn't have the ravenous fans with their weighty expectations. But it's probably nice. He'd probably appreciate if he got a little more credit for what he's done.
Yeah, like I don't know about the Korean fans. Like they go towards like they have different aesthetics when it comes to like who they like or who they don't like. But at least for the West, it makes a bit of sense because he grew up like his rise to power was in the midst where like there was like a billion Protosses to choose from, and the other ones had more like appeal. I guess would be the best way to put it. because they either won like the big tournaments that people cared about and watched a shit ton of, like CJ Hero or Zest was like so dominant you had to look to him. Rain was the guy who literally saved Protoss in 2012. Again, at least for PvP, arguably for PvZ. Like there are a bunch of reasons as to why, and he gets kind of lost in there. And I also think it's partly due to like his play style, which is like when I break down like the categories of what it means to be a great Protoss, this guy's probably like top 2, top 3, top 4 in every single category, but he's not necessarily the single best in any individual one. So a lot of the times when he's winning, it's because he literally has to outsmart the other guy. Like he has to break down his skill set to their skill set and then create like a disparity in the matchup. That's kind of how I see him anyway.
Yeah, I think he might have been like early in 2018 playing arguably. Maybe, I mean, he's had some really good periods. Like
Mm-hmm.
when he won SSL and Shenzhen in like back-to-back months in 2015.
Yeah.
Like he was really good back then.
Yeah, I think
You know,
Ollie
but
basically said he thought he was the best Protoss player at that time.
yeah, he was really good. But he was really good at the beginning of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Loses what to Maru and Kodas and
Yep.
Dark and India. Loses to Rogue. I mean, he plays a lot of like close series in the early mid stages of the year.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I feel like the WCS points actually are correct in terms of ranking Classic against the other Protosses, because I think he is better than the other Protosses from Korea. So
yeah, I can agree. I mean, I think Zest has been
shaky.
generally he doesn't pass the eye test in a lot of ways. Like he does a lot. He always does sloppy things. He always has the Zest bank, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when he wins, it's all kind of forgivable. When he loses, it all is kind of like it mars his performances. And then stats has been up and down. SOS obviously just showing up all of a sudden now. So I think it's fair to say Classic's been
The
the
best.
best for us throughout the year.
Yeah. And then I won't spend too much time on this, but I will talk about the dead people who came back to life, Solar and Creator. Basically, two names I didn't think would ever come back for two very different reasons. But they both came back in exactly the ways I thought they would, and they both died because of those exact reasons. So what I mean by that is basically I thought Solar was the best playing Heart of the Swarm style tactics or strategy, and he kind of pulled that out against SOS, and that's how he kind of basically he just surprised SOS the first two games, and then SOS was like, oh, it's just this shit again, and he came back and killed him. That's kind of how I saw that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Creator, he literally just pulled out. He literally kept going with his stupid double forge charge Archon thing been doing since 2011. It just happens it kind of works for this meta, and he just surprised TY's TY's what the fuck is this? This is 8 years old. I wasn't even playing StarCraft 2 back then.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, beats him with that, but then it goes to a PvP where Classic is superior. So.
Well, I will say this: Solar can play really well from time to time. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it within him to play well. His problem is always a matter of consistency. And he's kind of been playing well lately. If you look at his Liga Lock, whatever, he's beating a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So good for him. But losing to Creator is just not okay. Creator is routinely losing in the early rounds of online tournaments.
He's bad.
He's just not good. He's not good at all. Yeah, he's just not good. So I don't know.
But I think
it's just unforgivable for TY to lose to Creator in that situation.
Yeah,
and he played Classic close, which is to me that's more eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
But Creator played his last couple good games of his career, and now he can go back to just being very bad again.
Yeah, he can go back to blaming TSL for all his woes, even though he literally hasn't changed for 8 years. Come on, man.
I mean, it's. I think there are some miracles of professional StarCraft, and the fact that Creator still has a salary
is one of them.
That's got to be one of them. I mean, because there has to be a lot of Korean players now are signed to foreign teams, but if you said a year 6 months ago, when Innovation wasn't, Sue wasn't, Dark obviously wasn't also, but you list all these names of players who don't have teams, and Creator. on January. Like, good for him. Good for him.
Fucking stealing those checks as
Yeah. Still getting paid to play StarCraft.
yeah. Fuck it. I will say this for TY, like the chances of him getting upset in the same way are incredibly abysmal because the chances of Creator actually making a tournament again are equally abysmal, and only he plays that kind of style. And I think it'll probably go back to irrelevancy if the patch changes.
At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I know you're probably. I know I've been publicly branded as not the biggest fan of TY.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls a similar trick at BlizzCon.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, we may as well go to BlizzCon then. So, and we may as well start with TY because TY is in Group A, and so I don't want to be unfair to Lambo, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think Maru, TY, and Neeb are like the three candidates to make it out, and Maru's by clear number one. So the second place battle would be between TY and Neeb. What do you think of that?
Let me look. So yeah, Maru wins opening match. Maru's gonna advance. So the thing about TY and Neeb is they'll probably play twice.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the rematch curse is in play because you imagine Maru beats Lambo, TY or Neeb wins, then Maru beats them, so they'll probably play twice. I could see it going 1-1. Whoever wins which match, I have no idea, but I could see Neeb winning a match against TY.
Mm-hmm.
They just played recently in GSL, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And Neeb could have won that series. There was like that weird delay or something, like the regame. Like there's like a delay, and then he loses the draw game,
Mm-hmm.
the game that should have been a draw. He loses it. It's like so Neeb really lost his mental, which was not really surprising. He's always been described as someone with a little fragile mentality. But yeah, in the best of 3 series, if he gets 2 shots at TY, I could see him winning one of them. So I think it's a toss-up which one gets out of that group.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of mental edge, I actually do think TY isn't as bad as Neeb, but TY does have that problem. I think he's always had that problem. Like I know like a lot of people don't agree with me on that, but like I just look at his career as like, okay, so you're telling me this guy's legitimately good, but like could be a champion, but he just keeps failing right before the finish line, and you don't think he has a problem? Like I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think the talent's there for sure. It's just something beyond the in-game stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Because yeah, he's great. He's been one of the best turns consistency over the last couple of years. But whereas Innovation in 2017 and Mar in 2018 win the close series, TY kind of just
loses them.
has a bad habit of losing them.
Yeah. Like I'll go ahead and guess. Like I think if whoever loses the first one will win the second one.
That's the tradition, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why. Obviously, there's like I think the main one I'm going with is for pressure reasons, because if we're talking about mental strength here, like you feel like you could have made it out, but now you have to play this guy who's probably figured out a bunch of shit about his matchup against you because he lost that one, and then now you play against again, and then I think that kind of gets into their heads.
Yeah, the weird thing about BlizzCon is remember the groups aren't played GSL style. They play like winners. They play losers, winners. They reverse the winners match and the losers match in BlizzCon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's gonna play a role in things. Where like I guess so let's say Neeb loses, he plays Lambo first, and then like days later, because yeah, the schedule is so weird. It's like the groups are played over like multiple days, with multiple matches being played on different days. So I don't know if that format's gonna favor any one person more than the other. I mean, TY advanced last year, Neve didn't, so I don't think you can read into that too much. But yeah, I'd say it's a toss up. I think either of them can win, but Mario definitely gets out in first.
All right, let's go to Group B. Think I'll go ahead and say it. I don't think Hero Marine's getting out of this one alive.
Sorry, Gabe.
Yeah. The 3 players I'm looking to: Zest, SOS, and Serral, and I think Serral gets out first. What do you think?
I mean, I'd be surprised if Serral loses a game in this group.
Yeah, like Zest is like Zest's play style is specifically bad against Serral's type, which is like very mechanically refined, very clean, very efficient. Zest is not any of those things. Unless he like literally outsmarts Serral twice, I don't think he's gonna win.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's also just not stellar in ZVP, and Serral is just incredible against Protoss.
yeah, so I don't think that's gonna work, and I don't think SOS's stuff is going to stick to Serral particularly well.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm saying is Serral has to win this. If he doesn't, that's probably if he doesn't make it out of the group, that's probably a straight up failure on his part.
Oh, I mean, I think anything. Well, let's be honest with Serral. If he doesn't make the finals, it's going to be like a big letdown.
It depends who he plays, though. Like if he meets Maru, I don't think that's a big letdown.
Yeah, he can only the only way it'll be forgiven is if he loses tomorrow.
I think
if he loses to anybody else.
I think he can. No, I think he can lose to Dark too.
He loses to Dark, and he will be okay with it.
Yeah, because it's a ZVZ.
Yeah, well, Serral is the best. I think Serral is the best story of this tournament, just because of how divisive he is in the community. You know.
Oh, is he? Like I just watch the games. I just completely ignore the community.
Like I don't know about Reddit. I don't know if the format of Reddit enables the same kind of discussion on Team Liquid with, there's so many. It's more like message board style on Reddit. And it's just people quoting each other and bickering back and forth on Team Liquid.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this real like animosity towards Serral from the Korean elitists. He brings up all the good things. He brings up he brings up how region lock is bad, how all this like feelings that foreigners are robbing the Korean players of their money. And then people get mad at Team Liquid writers for ranking him highly in the power ranking because he hasn't beaten any Koreans. He's only played in one Korean tournament. So it's like there's a long list of reasons. And the foreign fans have good right to be excited because
he passes the eye test like a motherfucker.
Serral's probably I didn't like, pay so much attention to the foreign scene when Stefano was really good or when Naniwa was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for me to imagine they were any better than Serral is now. I mean, he's got to be like as good as any foreigner's ever been.
Yeah, he's probably as good as any foreigner's ever been, but like there's a lot of context behind the achievements. Between the players. That's why
there are others with more accolades and better achievements. But as far as his skill go, I mean, Serral's probably more skilled than any Korean besides Maru, I think at least. So I think he has to get out of this group. If he doesn't, it's like a huge disaster. It's like the same thing. If he doesn't get out of the group, it's the same thing we would say if Maru didn't get out of his group.
Yeah,
they're on the same level at this point.
Mm-hmm. Like I guess we could side tangent a bit. I'll talk a bit about Serral. So basically, like the entire crux of the problem is he passes the eye test like a motherfucker, like Neeb did Neeb did when he was dominating everybody in the foreigner scene. Like they're both very clean, very efficient players. So it's hard to look outside of their periods of dominance and think, was a foreigner ever this good? But the things that made the previous foreigners very good are very different things than what makes Serral very good. And what I mean by that is we can break it down to the scenes, right? Like there are like less Koreans, there's no KESPA system, and there's less salary and all that stuff. Like these are all things you have to consider. Then there's less tournaments, and this is actually a critical point. I don't think anybody's given a lot of thought to. But basically, because there's less tournaments, you do get way more time to prepare for a specific tournament or get into form for a specific tournament. Whereas, like in the old days, you would be flying from a tournament to tournament week after week after week after week.
Yeah.
So it's very different circumstances. Like I don't think, like outside of like the best Koreans, no player has ever looked particularly clean during that era. Not even like the KESPA players, because there's so much shit going on that they don't have time to like look particularly clean from tournament to tournament. Whereas like Serral and Neeb do, so that's a factor, right?
To be fair, real quick, so the way the WCS scheduled this year, it was really messed up in a way. Like the first event is at the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
The second event was the beginning of June. So from the beginning of June till the beginning of September.
Yeah.
So that's June, July, 4 months.
Yeah.
Cyril played and won 4 tournaments in that period.
Yeah. So
And you could see some fatigue in Montreal. Like he got taken a lot. He was a lot closer to losing in Montreal than he had been all year. And I really think that has to do with just playing the 4 tournaments in 4 months, which is more akin to what it used to be like.
yeah, but like in
And
Tage's
I
case,
think it
that'd be
wore him
like 8
down.
tournaments or some bullshit. Like that's kind of like
Yeah,
the difference,
exactly.
right?
But yeah, but I think he got worn down from. It's tough to play all those tournaments,
Yeah.
especially when you're flying around to all of them.
Mm-hmm. And,
Um,
yeah. And then,
I know
yeah.
personally it takes me weeks to recover from, being in Korea for a couple of days
Mm-hmm.
with my sleep. I don't know what Cyril's deal is, but for him, he doesn't travel out of the country to Korea too much. I don't know. I don't know how much you could say having Valencia, then less than a month later, GSL versus the World, then a month later, Montreal wore him down as the season went on. Um, but yeah, I agree with you on the situation where he's kind of had a much lighter schedule than a lot of these foreigners used to have, and not the consistent competition against Koreans that they used to have.
Yeah. So like that's like a major factor. That's why if you're literally only looking at like results, like he couldn't be just because he doesn't have the opportunities to be. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
entire problem with WCS is I think it like limits the truly ascendant foreigner
Mm-hmm.
from getting those results because they're not allowed to play as many Koreans. Even
Well, it's
if
all about BlizzCon.
yeah, it's all about. But like even if like you win one, it's not quite the same as like going to like 8 or 9 of these things.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, I think Blizzard just wants to. I obviously don't know what their MO is, but I assume Blizzard just wants BlizzCon to be like this ultimate showdown, and that's what they got. They had one player dominate WCS, one player dominate GSL, and now they never hit each other. Well, they hit each other in like WSG back early in the year, but now that they've both taken their final form,
Yeah, but
they'll finally get to play BlizzCon, which seems to me like that's like Blizzard's perfect narrative is to have these two guys play at BlizzCon.
yeah. Whereas like obviously like I have a different like I personally believe like if like repeated repeated encounters are better than just a single encounter. And then my example would be like literally any rivalry in StarCraft 2. There was a
Yeah.
Naniwa is not interesting unless like they fight 8 or 9 times. Same
Mhm.
with Flash Jadong, Boxer Yellow, all the greats, right? So that's kind of like my counter to that, but obviously that's not what Blizzard is interested in.
I
So
mean, we'll obviously see into next year. I mean, WCS has been like, very successful, I think, in what they tried to accomplish.
yeah,
We'll see. I don't know. Well, it's impossible to know because
yeah,
they're redoing WCS at the end of the year. There could be region lock. There could be no region lock. So maybe next year we see
we will.
If
Yeah,
Morrow and Cyril play 3, 4, 5 times. Who knows?
yeah. And then one last thing you have to consider is like completely different games. From today to like Heart of the Swarm to Wings of Liberty, or like the various different iterations. Like they demand very different things,
Hmm.
right? So that's kind of like, for instance, like I'll give you an example. Like one of the reasons I rate Snoot so highly is because he was literally nerfed like 3 or 4 times, and then he came back
Oh
to the
yes,
top.
yeah.
Like
Well, I do think.
until like
Sorry, go
Cyril
ahead.
gets nerfed to the ground, and he rises back to the top. I'm not gonna put him in the same category as that necessarily.
Yeah, we'll never know unless they. I mean, Cyril, I got in trouble for calling, for insinuating Rogue could be a patch Zerg, and I would never say that about Cyril. Cyril's spectacular, but if the Hydralisk remains really strong, we're never gonna know how good these guys would be without the Hydralisk as is. Um, I think personally, if Cyril had existed in Heart of the Swarm in his current
I mean,
ability, he
yeah,
just would have been like Stu in
really.
Heart of the Swarm with his mechanics. It would,
Uh,
it would have been the same thing.
See, I don't know about that because I've never seen him play truly Ascendant Muta style.
Yeah, well, I think mechanically he could
Like,
keep up with
no,
anybody
like
back
mechanically he
then.
could, but like if we're talking like playing mechanically in this style and playing mechanically in the Muta style are different things. I think
Mhm.
so. It's hard to say. Like it's the same thing with
Yeah,
like Beyond. Like yeah, he was mechanically very good when he won that GSL. Like nobody's denying that. But if I compare him to like let's see Innovation in 2013 when he was playing against that Muta style, I think Beyond would fall apart. I think
what
Beyond,
was it beyond? Beyond was pretty good mechanically, right? Like way back when.
Yeah, he
You know,
was. He was.
yeah,
But like even
I think that was always his strength.
yeah, but even at his like peak powers of like if I somehow time traveled him back then, he would still lose to a bunch of those Zergs
Yeah,
because
he was never good at defensive multitasking.
yeah, despite his like incredible mechanics, like he just it just wouldn't work out. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't say the same about Cyril, but I can't say he would either. So that's like a
yeah,
thing you have to think about when you're like breaking that down in your head, or at least that's what I think about. Right.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to Group C.
But Group B,
Okay.
I'm gonna say I actually think Zest would beat SOS if they had to play in a
I think they will play
final
in the
match.
final match.
I think Zest would win.
Really? I don't believe in Zest's ability to micro at all. Like, and I feel like that's that can be such a critical thing in
I think he's
PvP.
good at PvP. I think he's decent at PvP. I could be completely wrong, but I think he's decent at PvP.
All right. Well, I'll go with SOS because
Okay.
I really don't like like Zest is like the guy who's like he literally lost all of his like his mechanics have like a half life and they've been degrading ever since Kespa died. Like
Yeah, yeah.
every like 6 months it gets worse for some reason. It's like oh okay this is rock bottom. It can't get worse. Oh shit! Like a year later it's like gotten even worse. Like it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I think just for Ollie's sake, I think I'll go with Zest.
Yeah.
Group C though, this would be your and Wax's group
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah. The Legend of Haas continues. The true reason why this is the greatest foreigner skilled era of all time is because Haas made it to a finals at WCS.
Oof, yeah.
That's my counter to that. You somehow Haas made it to finals and you're trying to tell me it's the most skilled era? Come on, guys.
He beat Showtime, who's in this group
Yeah, he could
at
be.
that tournament.
He could cheat. He could cheese a lot of people if they don't take him seriously.
Showtime though beat Zest at GSL versus the World.
Hmm.
So his PvP is not bad. Stats is kind of slumping. A little bit maybe.
Yeah, but like here's the thing: like Stats always feels like he's slumping, but he makes it through anyway. He wins.
Yeah, he does. I mean, yeah, he's always like not great online, but I don't know. Anyway, I think this group is actually kind of close. I think Haas is just not going to do well.
No, he probably shouldn't.
This is BlizzCon. Like no one should lose to your shenanigans at BlizzCon. The fact that he's made it here deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, he like I said, he's. I think I should have said he's like the most overachieving foreigner to have ever existed with his skill set because he is so fucking bad.
I mean, he'd be like Myungsik if Myungsik. Well, I mean, yeah, they're pretty much say like Myungsik randomly did well in like one GSL.
Yeah,
Made the round of four, maybe even twice, but
yeah,
at least once.
yeah. So,
So this group, though, I think I would go with Dark and Stats, but I think Showtime could beat Stats maybe if they played in a final match. But I'd say Dark Stats.
yeah, I think Dark's. I think we have the same opinion on this one. Dark Stats for sure. I think Showtime does still have a chance. Haas should have zero chance, but I mean, he's so funny to watch sometimes. Just so funny
Yeah,
to watch, right? So,
I think Group D is funny because every other group has like two good Koreans and one like decent foreigner.
or one like super ascendant one in Cyril.
Yeah, like exactly. Like there's three players like in Group A: Maru, TY, Neve, Zest, SOS, Serral, Stats, Dark, Showtime. This group is like I don't see any way where Nurtio or Special beat Rogue or Classic.
Yeah, they ran into two hard groups. Like I think you throw either of them into one of the other groups, except B. Actually, no, I think even B. Like I'm looking through it. Yeah, I think they have much better chances than any of the other three groups.
Yeah, this is tough for them. Rogue hasn't been playing too great, but like I don't know, Rogue will do fine against against Major, or he'll do fine against Nurtio. And Classic's not losing to either of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be Classic and Rogue.
Yeah.
An interesting note: the bracket for the round of 8 is a random draw.
Oh shit. Okay.
Um,
They always do
I,
that though.
they do random draw because I guess otherwise it would be too obvious. Like if they didn't do random draw, then Maru and Sarah will be playing in a semifinal
Oh,
or quarterfinal because their A and B plays 1A, plays 2B, etc., etc.
like here's the thing about the random draw. It could be random, but every single time it kind of draws in such a way that's favorable for the tournament organizer.
Yeah.
So I was like, whatever.
Well, I was talking to some people and they were like, if they fix the draw so that Sarah and Maru were on opposite sides, they said like like fixed bracket and random bracket doesn't mean anything different to me.
Yeah.
If you don't know that it's fixed, it's fine. So we'll see. But I think Blizzard will hope and pray that Maru and Cyril end up on opposite sides of the bracket.
And in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, if they met in the quarterfinals, I mean that would. Could you imagine? Like that's the height of the tournament. That's the moment where
I mean,
once that's over,
that's the
it's all
assumed height of
downhill.
the tournament.
Yeah,
Could be like either of them could get upset before then.
yeah, but I mean, if they play, it's that's it. I mean, there's no going, up from there, because
Mm-hmm.
it's been all year. I mean, I don't know
Not
how
unless
much.
Haas wins, but yes, I agree.
I mean, yeah, even I mean, well, imagine like if Maru beats Cyril, let's say, or Cyril beats Maru, and then one of them plays Haas in the final, and Haas wins. It won't. No one will care as much as the Maru Cyril match.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like this has really been the first time. Like I think back to last year, there was no matchup between two guys. Like Innovation was the best player going into BlizzCon, Rogue was really hot, but there was never like last year at least, and 2 years ago, maybe Dark versus someone, but it seems to me like this is the first time in a long time where there's been a premier matchup where everybody just wants to see that one matchup more than any other one.
Yeah, but maybe I don't know because I don't follow the community things. Like I wanted to see Mario versus Dark for again, but I just think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just because they make really good matches.
Oh yeah, I mean that would be a sweet semifinal, and then the winner plays Sarah.
Yeah. All right, so I think I actually agree that like I think Mario is number one for certain, but who do you think's number two?
Uh, so if I had to rank, I'd say Maru 1, Sarah 2. I actually just did a power rank for Team Liquid, so if you want to know how I feel, you can check out the power ranking on Team Liquid, and that's an aggregate of me and other writers and I. But I'm roughly the same as what the guys put out, so you get some idea
Mm-hmm.
of who I think is most likely to win. But yeah, Maru 1, Sarah 2.
Actually, I'm gonna go with Mario one, Dark two, Cyril three,
So,
because
okay.
I believe in the Kongs. I believe they'll always get second, and Dark is certainly a Kong in my book.
Yeah, yeah. He's something, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have one last topic. Recently, you wrote an article about Maru's place in GSL history, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you compared him favorably to the rest of the players. So, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the bottom up, or do you want to start with the top down?
You throw something at me and I'll talk about
Okay, so why is innovation inferior to MVP, Sue, and Maru?
it. Okay. So this is the best way to preface this is I view this argument differently than the GOAT argument.
Mm-hmm.
This when I talk about who the greatest GSL player is, I don't mean who's won the most championships because that you don't need to write an article about. You pull up
The note.
Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
I think MVP and Sue have like a critical role in the history of GSL where MVP, as I said in the article, MVP brought in legitimacy. He was like the first player that really played StarCraft 2 as it could be played, and he was a great winner, a great champion. He was everything you want from your big champion, right? I mean, like he had a good story. He was a great player. He endured through injuries and stuff. His was the first great storyline of GSL, and you can never take that away from him. And Sue is the second great storyline of GSL, with his just getting second place all the time, turning every GSL into like this weird fanfic where maybe Sue wins GSL this time.
Always wins two games in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of cool, right? How like the biggest storyline or one of the biggest storylines in every season of GSL that Sue participates in is will Sue win this GSL? And that's like an incredible thing for one player to have that much gravity over a scene that he creates that big of a storyline just by existing. So innovation at 4, I think he is. I think he's the fourth best player in GSL history. But I think MVP and Sue have their role in GSL that can never be taken away, never be matched because it's there. It's part of history at this point. And Maru's dominance is unequaled. So I think innovation sits squarely at 4 because he's won so much stuff. He's got his own little like season King of Season 3 narrative going, which is cool.
But it's not quite as good as Maru's this year.
Not quite as good, yeah, but it's nifty. So I put innovation at 4 because I think when you talk about greatest of a tournament, it's about the history of the tournament, and one's importance to the history of the tournament should have a role in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for whatever reason, a lot of people think I'm an innovation hater, but I do have a lot of respect for him and his play because I don't think there's any. I don't think any Terran could have replicated what he did in terms of achievements or style of play of how he did it, because this is a guy who literally can win solely based off of like a 0.05% like advantage in like Terran versus anything else. Like if you give him like that small of an edge, he will find a way to like dominate the game. So I think in that sense, he like if I had to like explain who I think the perfect Terran was, I might choose innovation, but he doesn't like the essential problem is like he doesn't necessarily surpass the imagination. So that's always been my knock against him, and that's always been like the problem when trying to craft this where he places in the hierarchy of like the most important GSL players, because like it makes like your 3 choices make sense because they all like define 3 very different eras. Like MVP is before Kespa and then going into Kespa. Sue is literally Kespa and post Kespa, and then Maru is now, right?
Yep.
Whereas like innovation, he wins throughout a bunch of these different periods, but like the period where he was supposed to be most dominant, he failed. So he failed against Sulky, got reverse swept, first time in GSL history. But like that should have been his year, but it wasn't his year. And then just the way his like results line up, like even if you're talking about like the greatest of all time argument, all of his achievements are just a lesser version of what Life did so far.
Well, I do think when I talk about like I have him innovation that is at 4 in the greatest of all time for GSL.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as GO list, everything I have him at 2 behind only MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when it comes to like, I mean, the dude's just a winner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He just wins tournaments. You talk about he got swept in that way back when, but since then he just wins everything. Every time he's in a final, he wins. So
yeah, assuming he gets there, like my problem with when I like construct the argument for innovation is like if I like literally break down the criteria to favor innovation, it just puts Life ahead of him. Like that's my problem with it. Like everything like innovation has done for his race or for his achievements, Life has done better.
But innovation just did it over a much more sustained period of time.
Yeah.
It's this innovation's big advantage.
Whereas like Life's big advantage is he did it in the hardest period of time.
Yeah.
Which is what I would favor. Like, because if you're talking about like pure peak, like Life is still untouchable, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind
anyway,
that's kind of like the problem with that argument. But yeah, innovation's very a very interesting player to talk about in general. But
so anything else interested you from the article? Because I think it got a lot of people talking, which is always good.
Okay, so who do you think's actually the best storyline then among the 3? Like who is the most defined? Who is the player who defines GSL the most among the 3 players you chose?
I think Sue, just because I like writing art, get people, and I think Sue's storyline like is just there's two elements to it. One is storyline is just the most beautifully tragic thing ever.
Uh-huh.
But 2, I was asked this question last year, and at this point, Sue just got a team, good representation. He should. I assume he'll be around next year. There's no reason to believe he won't be. But I was asked like if one player from Korea retired, what would be the biggest impact on the Korean scene? And I think it's undeniably Sue. I think he his role in StarCraft 2, the Korean scene particularly, because the foreigners don't value Sue as much as the Koreans do.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, if Sue's just the wake he would leave if he suddenly was gone is just like so much bigger than. I think we're so far removed from MVP retiring that
MVP
you
never
know,
even did an official retirement. He just like
yeah,
faded
he just
away,
kind of
right?
went to Europe, and then it's funny that he lost to Sue in like his last GSL
We're
match.
talking about that's like
But,
that's fucking iconic in its
yeah,
own way.
that's better. That's a better storyline than any I've ever read. Is that Sue retired MVP from
Yeah,
GSL.
that's like literally the line I used when like Sue got to his like third. It's like, okay, this guy's literally taken the mantle in a sense, even though he hasn't won yet. But this is it, right?
Yeah, so I think you could go with any of them. Maru's the third storyline. I think the other two just have aged better.
Mm-hmm. Like,
They've really sunk in over time. Maru, we need perspective. We need to see
what
a
he
year from
does.
now, 2 years from now. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, like for me, I think it has to be Sue. Like disregarding like the storyline or whatever, I think he's just straight up the best GSL player of all time. Like
Oh yeah, in most finals.
undeniably, despite the fact he's never won one. Right?
Well, I mean. Making the most finals has to mean you get your face on Mount Rushmore for that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, he is actually on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I mean.
And this was before he got the other two. Like he only had four at the time.
Oh yeah, now he gets two more. I mean, that's fine. He was like a guy who went. I had him like low, like close to 10 in the Go rankings, maybe even in the 11, 12 something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he moves way up despite not winning a single tournament because he makes the two GSL finals and BlizzCon finals.
Yeah, I was like, it's quite good,
So
right?
yeah, that's a feat only he can accomplish, where he just keeps climbing in prestige without winning anything.
Yeah. So like I will finish it with this. Like I think like I do think if like we change the criteria a bit, Sue could be the greatest player of all time. Like just the way you think about it. Like if you don't necessarily count victories as the most important thing, like nobody is touchable to Sue.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to put it.
Yeah,
But I'll say,
yeah.
even if you value victories above all other things, he's still right there. I think around top five.
Yeah, like
Even if all you cared about was winning.
mm-hmm.
So that's good. He's got to be pretty happy about that.
Yeah. So I think he is like one. Here's the thing like when you think about Brood War and how like it evolved in the Korean scene, a lot of it is because of like there's like a lot of mythos behind it. There's like a lot of WWE behind it. There's a lot of like hype videos, production, storylines, all that came together, right? Sue was actually like the last remnant of that without having to do anything, basically, because he's like there's no like necessary hype. It's like you just look at his fucking results like, oh my fucking god, this guy's been in the final. He's been to the literal top and fallen like a billion times. So I do think he's like, I've said this multiple times, but I think he's the most important figure in StarCraft 2 history, just in terms of what you're, in terms of like what you're supposed to learn from this guy, what his career was, like everything just fits together so perfectly for this one character.
Well, I wish I could have been around in 2014 to write Sue articles then.
Yeah, like I think I wrote all of them. But yeah, I will tell you this, you would have been pissed off because he's like he was underrated all the way until after his fourth GSL final.
Oh yeah. That's what I've always perceived from the way people talked about him.
Yeah, like basically everybody thought he was always going to like trash out every single time in every single one of his GSL seasons. Whereas like I legitimately thought he was like a top 3 Zerg in 2013 before, and then like it started to prove he was even better than that once you go into 2014.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So he goes top 3 for me, and the greatest of all time GSL. I'd put him as the best storyline with innovation. I mean, MVP. Take your pick, either or.
Mm-hmm.
And good article to write. I think it's timely. Good to put Mara's win in perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it really was an amazing accomplishment. Winning 3 GSLs in a year is just it seems implausible, but he managed to do it.
I will say one thing for Maru is he did change the game, at least for Terran. He certainly changed the game, and he in the face of changing the game, he also changed himself. Because I feel like that was his last hurdle as a player. Because I think he's basically complete in every other sense, except for like winning, except for having like a super dominant late game. And in order to do that, he basically had to reinvent the game. So I think that's pretty sick in and of itself. All right.
Yeah, I mean, he I think he just said like he just took this year a lot more seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently this is what you get when Mario takes things seriously.
Yeah. Apparently. All right. Any last words? Just wrap up.
No, just yeah, really excited for. If I can I do some random promotion? Just
Yeah.
I hope everyone reads the Road to BlizzCon articles
Mm-hmm.
over at Team Liquid.
Yeah.
BlizzCon, big event. Very excited. I look forward to talking about the carnage after the fact.
Yeah. It'll be fun. All right. See you guys later.